Welcome you all here today, and our guests here, and thank you for coming. I've met you briefly, and your stories are very, not only empowering, but extremely important that the general public hears. And I'm glad you're here today to share your stories. I'd also like to thank the media for being here today to bring awareness to the domestic violence issue. Because of the sensitivity of what we're doing today, and unlike any other press conference you've probably attended, we are going to invite our chaplain, Chaplain Wesley, to begin with a prayer to celebrate the journey that our guests have taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us bow our heads. Good morning, God. We exist to give you glory. Thank you for the amazing team of leadership and officers in Prince George's County Police for their dedicated service to protect those in need. Thank you for those in the fight against domestic abuse. For healing amongst those hurt, we plead to you. Our world is facing an everyday crisis. We pray for those impacted by domestic violence. Give us courage to face our challenges. We love you. With love from you, give us the advantage. Give us peace to prevent more harm. Take away anger and give us charm. Bless this occasion to share our stories. At the end, we give you all the glory. In your majestic name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. I'd like to acknowledge the organizations that are here and that will be sharing information about the resources that are available for those that are impacted by domestic violence. The Prince George's County Family Justice Center, Stay in Touch, Moyana C. Tillman Foundation, the Prince George's County Department of Family Services. And now I'd like to bring up our chief, Prince George's County Police Chief Malik Aziz.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming out to our first domestic violence media breakfast. It's raising concern, raising awareness to domestic violence in order to prevent domestic violence. I want to thank Dr. Wesley for giving us a few words of faith when we open up. It's always important, as well as our Deputy Chief O'Lair and Major Waddy, who are in the Bureau of Investigations, and also Major McCreary of our Special Investigations Division, along with her team, with Lieutenant Green, and the awesome detectives that work in the Domestic Violence Unit. Deputy Chief McCreary and his Bureau of Patrol, who are the first to respond to start the process of justice. And I'm looking forward to hearing from our guest in this robust partnership. Domestic violence awareness is very important to me, the great men and women of Prince George's County Police Department, as well as our County Executive, Ms. Angela Alsobrooks, and our CAO, Ms. Tara Jackson, as well as the Deputy Chief of Public Safety, Mr. Barry Stanton. We're here today to support the victims and/or survivors to help create the climate where women and men feel safe and empowered to seek help and to bring justice for anyone experiencing domestic violence. That's why we have so many great professionals in this room today in order to give the information about those resources. This morning, we're working towards breaking the stigma of domestic violence, not just through words, but through action, and the action part is very important. It can happen to anybody, regardless of age, gender, or economic status, but overwhelmingly, it happens to women. And it's alarming to have statistics that speak of the volume, hundreds of thousands of majority of women who experience domestic violence, but in totality of more than car accidents or sexual assaults and a few other categories combined. That'll show you just how great of magnitude that domestic violence has taken root in our society. So we're here to help, and promoting domestic violence awareness in our communities can reduce that stigma and encourage our victims and survivors to seek the services that they support. And I'll say this before I bring up Major McCreary. Where's Major McCreary at? Okay, before you come and join me, I'll say how important this is. And we changed our reporting process in July 1st of 2023 so that the first responder police officer wouldn't send anyone to go get help. They would take a report and start that process and not wait for them to go to a commissioner. And many of them did not. So it made those numbers escalate. But that number is a worthy escalation if we need to seek help. If help is the end, then we will take those rise in those stats, and then we can work towards the prevention. And I'll say early on in my life, and I've seen it up close, in my immediate, family surroundings. And the first time that I could not actually process domestic violence was when my aunt and my uncle, who were always at it, and my uncle would be considered musician, big time guy, traveling all over the country, playing his blues, and doing the things that would upset a woman, upset a wife. And this went back and forth. But the early wee hours of the morning when my mother got the call that her brother was shot dead by my aunt, and the sub-story of that was that she was sick and tired of him hitting on her and doing the things that he had done. And we didn't put it in a proper context. It would take years for me to put that in proper context, that domestic violence was taking place. And subsequently, before the murder, that this alarming statistics that is somewhere between 60 and 80% experience some type of domestic abuse before the homicide, whether it is the man or the woman. Now, that's the first time I seen it, but it would take me years to process it. The next time I seen it, my sister, who was always having a rough boyfriend somewhere, and when me and my brother drove up, he was assaulting my sister. It was a fight. He was doing most of the punching. But my brother got out, and where I'm from, that's just a no-no. So I was a young guy, but I was gonna get in on the action. But before I could get in on the action, my brother was there. And my brother there's no other way to put it, he really beat that guy up. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But my mother was inside the house, and she came out, and she said, after it was broken up, and she told my brother, she told this guy, I'm almost saying, I'm trying to leave the names out of it. And she said, don't you ever put your hands on a woman, don't you ever put your hands on my daughter. And she turned to my brother and said, you're wrong, but you had to defend your sister. But the lesson was for me, and here was the lesson. She turned to me and she said, son, don't you ever put your hands on a woman. That's what my mother said to me. So young boys being taught and trained up early that this is unacceptable. So the great matriarch of the family is giving her her expertise in the subject of life experiences, but gives me a lesson right there on the spot. And years later, I sit in this job for heading to 35 years. I've seen a lot over the decades now. And domestic violence has been one of those calls that is most devastating, that rips a family apart, that causes all kind of trauma and issues. And police officers deal with it, and families are dealing with it. So that's what we are here today to talk about, this awareness of it, to prevent it. So I thank our guests for being here. I thank our team for working hard at trying to prevent these things. And when it's not prevented, working towards justice with all of our partners. So with that, I'm going to bring Major McCreary up and let her give you a few words. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Major Erica McCreary, and I'm the commander of the Special Crimes Division. I want to extend my gratitude for each of you being here, especially you all who are brave and kind enough to come in and share your stories and resources with us. It absolutely means a lot to us, so thank you. So we know that domestic violence is a very unique type of crime. It's something that we in the Special Crimes Division in the Domestic Violence section have decided to attack from a different standpoint as it's been approached over the years. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about strategy. The difference between regular crime and domestic violence is that domestic violence most often occurs in the privacy and the safety of our homes amongst the people who we love and trust the most. And that's what makes it different from different types of crime. So our strategy in the Special Crimes Division is we know that coming forward is the very most difficult first step, and it oftentimes takes time. We understand that, but we aim to lessen the fear of taking that first step, of calling the police or reaching out to our detectives or asking for resources. And we want to do that by becoming more accessible to the members of the community, which is why we aim to host events like this and attend more events like this. At the Special Crimes Division, we know that through education and partnerships, we will be able to make a difference. So what we're doing now is we're partnering with our school liaison officers, which are police officers who are specifically assigned to the schools, getting them additional training so that they're more aware of what domestic violence looks like. And like the chief said, we want to reach this next generation when they're young. We need to tell them that it's not okay. We need to show them what to do. We need to empower the people who are being abused on how to come forward and how to reach us. So that's going to be one of our strategies. Our other strategy is partnering with the great people who are in this room and community advocacy groups, the Family Justice Center, CAFI. We know that if we're more visible and more accessible, we can kind of humanize the badge and let people know that we're here for them and that we trust them. The entities that I mentioned here today, like the State's Attorney's Office, our local hospitals, Family Justice Center, they're not just names, they're actual tangible ways and places that people can go to get the help from the very beginning, from the 911 call to us, all the way through the legal process. So our partnerships are so important because we literally, each of us, we act as guides to our victims and survivors so that they never feel alone, they know that we're here, and they know that this matters to us. So we care about this work. Like Chief Aziz mentioned, as the men and women who wear this badge, we've all been impacted personally by domestic violence, be it via ourselves, be it via our families, our friends. Domestic violence is never something that just impacts one person. We've all felt it, the ripple effects, the repercussions, and we know. So that's why our detectives, our domestic violence section detectives, our special crimes detectives, our family justice center detectives pour their hearts and soul into this work. Every single day, they stay up at night, they lose sleep about these cases because they're people too, and it matters to them. And you all through the media, we know that you guys are one of our biggest resources when it comes to furthering our reach, getting our word out, and we really, really appreciate the things that you do. We know that it takes time for people to trust us, which is why you're going to start seeing us more, you're going to start hearing about us more, and we look forward to continuing relationships with each of you. Our goal today is ultimately to extend our hand through our media partners just to be able to get this message out. We know that a bulk of your viewership lives and works in the county, so you guys are a great resource and alliance and ally with us as we continue this fight. Together, we can stop the silence about domestic violence. I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Major. I would now like to bring up our first speaker, and that would be the Director of the Family Justice Center, Dr. Denise McCain.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is both an honor and a privilege to be with you this morning as we commemorate National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is a time when criminal justice professionals, advocates, and concerned citizens come together to recognize survivors, those who have persevered through their journeys of trauma and abuse, as well as those who've lost their lives to this insidious social ill. But it's also a time that we celebrate the progress that we've made. I'd like to first start off by recognizing the Honorable Chief Aziz. Thank you for your leadership and your participation as a collaborative partner and key stakeholder in our mutual efforts to combat domestic violence. Major McCrary, we thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Of course, Captain Fox, for your leadership as well. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize the law enforcement team that works with us at the Family Justice Center, Lieutenant Reed, Detective Hill, and also, of course, Lieutenant Green, that is a part of this as well. I just want to say to you, Chief, that you have really put the right people in the right place. We have a great working relationship, and they are key partners, integral to our ability to serve citizens, and they're doing it in the most professional manner. And they didn't pay me to say that. I just want to tell you that. They did not. They didn't tell me that. But of course, we thank you, and of course, the command staff and others that are here. We do thank you for the work that you do, for your dedication to safety and justice and the well-being of Prince George's County residents. Not only it's recognized, but it's deeply appreciated. And then, of course, I want to acknowledge our partners that are here with us today, the survivors that are here. Thank you for sharing your stories, for lending your voice to this issue, and really providing context to it so people understand how real it is, and bringing the human side to this and acknowledging how important it is to do this work. You know, I generally, and I'm going to tell you, I had two presentations, and I struggled with which one I wanted to share with you today. And I'm not one to stand on ceremony, and I don't really need formal introductions. But I do think at this moment it's important that I share a little bit about my background and why I'm here, why I do this work, and what brought me into this field. I think if you were to have read my bio, which they're generally overrated, but it would tell you that, as you know, I'm the director of the Family Justice Center. It would tell you, according to my bio, that I'm a visionary leader, trailblazer in this movement to combat intimate partner violence. I have served as a grassroots advocate, legislative liaison for the governor's office. I was also a grant administrator, and guess what? I even had a radio show. I was the first host for a domestic violence talk radio show through Howard University, 96.3 HD3 and Sirius XM 141. I did all of those things, and you know, again, if you hear that, one would think that, well, she's really qualified to do this job. She has quite an extensive background, and I would hope that is the case. But realistically, there's one thing that my bio would not tell you, and which is by far the most profound and the most impactful education and preparation that I've had to do this work, and that is my experience as a child of a victim of domestic violence. For more than 2 decades, my mother was brutally beaten by my father. This included horrific physical assaults, emotional and financial abuse. My father was a successful business owner, and he used that to control my mother, as most abusers do. The abuse would take place on any given day at any time, generally really for no reason at all. But I'm also an only child, and as that child, it was my job after these assaults to take care of my mother. I was the one that was putting compresses on her face, ice on her lips. She slept in my little twin bed at night because she couldn't go into the room with my father. And I was the one to console her as she wept after these horrific assaults. And to this day, I can still remember the fear, the anxiety that I felt when I just heard the key in the door. My heart would race. I was panic-stricken because I didn't know if this would be another one of those times, one of those nights. How bad would it be? What would happen? And what would happen when the police came? Now, let me tell you, this was in the 70s and the 80s, when there were no resources, there were no services, no shelters, no laws, no protections. Nothing to keep victims safe. So when the police came, one of the first things they would do is that they would ask my mother, well, what did you do to upset him? Why? What did you do to upset him? Or they would take my father to the side and say, why don't you go just take a walk and cool off? Because really, they didn't even feel comfortable stepping into the privacy of a man's home because it was a private family matter and they really had no right to tell him how to conduct himself. And like so many other women, my mother stayed. She stayed. And why? Because she had nowhere to go. She had no money, no resources of her own, and she was isolated from the family, the few family members that she had. This all limited her choices, but her real reason for staying, the one reason why she stayed, was because of me. My mother literally stayed in that situation because she wanted to ensure that I was given a life where I had access to education, that I was able to lead a life free of abuse, and she wanted to ensure. And I can still hear her saying to me, baby, you get a good education, because if a man ever put his hands on you, you should be able to leave. And I'm grateful and I'm blessed that I did not share my mother's fate, and I was able to live a life without abuse. But the problem is that, as I said, my mother sacrificed her life because she did not survive. At the age of 54, my mother lost her life to domestic abuse. That's why I'm here today. That's why I do this work, because I understand how important it is to have resources and services and to have people that really understand the role that they play and the value of this work. As I said, it cost my mother her life, but when I think back on those times and I look at where we are today, I think we'd all agree that we have made progress. We now have enabling laws, protections and provisions, mandated policies and procedures that are established to enhance the criminal justice system's response to victims, as well as programs now. We have shelters and services to facilitate safety, recovery, and healing. We all know these enhancements are the result of landmark federal legislation, VAWA, which is now celebrating 30 years this year. And again, this was the response to women and men now to ensure that victims and their families had access to services they needed to achieve safety and rebuild their lives, but also provided a more comprehensive and combined tough approach to hold offenders accountable. But yet, despite all of these enhancements, domestic violence continues to plague our communities. Victims must still overcome significant challenges to access justice and achieve safety. We don't have to talk about stats. I think we all know in this room how prevalent domestic violence is in this jurisdiction alone. Homicide rates, protective orders, we have the highest in the state of Maryland, higher than Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And certainly that is not something that I think we want to hold as a distinction for Prince George's County or something that we are proud of. As a researcher, for me, the question has always been and continues to be why? What are we doing wrong, and what can we do to more effectively address this issue? Looking at this from a broad, observant, and objective lens, it is my contention that the only way we're going to change this narrative and make real progress in eradicating domestic violence in Prince George's County is to make it a priority. We have to do more than cite statistics, give out brochures, hold awareness events, particularly 1 month of the year. making domestic violence a focal point for 31 days when survivors are suffering. They're losing their lives 365 days a year. And my personal favorite of all of these is that we have to stop mistakenly thinking that organizations have a monopoly on victims and that they're the only ones that can serve them. I mean, we know that there are more than enough victims out here for everyone to serve, and there is no one entity that has the responsibility for doing that. There are three things that survivors need in order to heal and have agency over this process. One is options. We have to understand that this is not a one-size-fits-all business. Everyone's situation is different, their needs are different, and the response has to be different. They need access. It doesn't matter how great, innovative a program is. If they don't know about it and they can't get there, it serves no purpose. And then information. Information and knowledge is power. We also have to make sure that they have choices to opt in or out of making decisions about who, how, when, and where information and services are provided. To truly effectuate change, this has to be a long-standing priority warranting sustained effort to improve systemic responses. And to do so, not only when there's a domestic violence fatality, it's on the 6 o'clock news, or when it's politically expedient, and it's used as an opportunist platform to further someone's personal agenda. Making domestic violence a priority means establishing a strong organizational culture, one that's grounded in clearly articulated goals, expectations, transparency, accountability, and standards for treatment and responses to victims. It means making a concerted effort with intentionality and commitment to tackling this issue, which requires developing a plan and a strategy that includes all key stakeholders, because we can't continue to work in silos. Domestic violence is not a police issue, it's not a prosecutor issue, and again, it's no one organization's issue or responsibility to resolve this issue alone. Domestic violence is a universal problem. It doesn't simply affect individuals, it affects the entire community. And it must be attacked on a community level with a coordinated community response where all stakeholders are working together, leveraging resources for a collective impact. We can and must work smarter, not harder, by coming together. This alone will promote change and create public value. And I believe that's where the true power of our partnerships lied. Now, I just want to say that I am encouraged. This is not all negativity. I think we are. And we have begun to really make that change in some processes. I'm happy to hear about the new measures that are being put in place here at the police department. Again, and grateful again to you, Chief Aziz, for your leadership and for your unwavering support and making this the partnership that we have at the Family Justice Center a key component of your strategy. I'm grateful for the grant that we have with OVW, where we are able to now expand our services. We're going into 2 police districts. One is perhaps not going to work, but at least District 7, we are prepared to move there. And then, again, most recently, stepping up and helping us with our Camp Hope. Understanding, I think we met and it was one conversation about Camp Hope, and you said, count me in, offered explorers and even transportation. And it really was an transformative experience for the 30 children that we took to camp, because we know that this is learned behavior. It starts in the home, and we're doing what we can to break that cycle. When we collaborate and follow up from domestic violence, and really what I wanted to say, that this joint effort and partnership has led to positive and meaningful outcomes for both our staff, partners, and survivors. We've already streamlined our efforts by creating pathways for survivors that go beyond the initial 911 call. We're transforming what used to be isolated responses to a more holistic approach. When we collaborate now, officers are following up from domestic violence incidences with our advocates. More recently, we brought in strangulation services. I see one of our nurses in the back. Thank you for being here. And this, we've been able to see firsthand how much and how more powerful these combined efforts are. Again, and I'm going to conclude by saying that, we can't do this alone. This is a community issue, and everyone needs to be involved. We also have to bring in our faith leaders, educators, business owners, and our neighbors all to be a part of this conversation. Because when the police department takes a stand, when the Family Justice Center takes a stand, when our community leaders take a stand, we can and will shift this narrative. We move from simply reacting to proactively preventing, and we're sending a clear message that domestic violence will not be tolerated in Prince George's County. Together, we are not just addressing the crime, but we are transforming lives. And I am confident that through this partnership, we will continue to build the kind of county where residents feel safe and supported, and where those affected by domestic violence know they have a community standing behind them. So on behalf of the Family Justice Center, our survivors, our partners, and those that we serve, I do want to thank you for your continued support. We are proud of what we have accomplished so far, but more than that, we're inspired by what we can accomplish together. I look forward to continuing this intentional partnership as we combat domestic violence in all its forms. And I'm excited, very excited to see the change that we will create together for the people and for Prince George's County. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCain. I'd like to bring up Ms. Christine Neely, the Vice President of the Prince George's County Family Justice Center Foundation.
Thank you. Good morning, Chief Aziz, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and to my fellow survivors. Thank you for having me here this morning. It is my honor and my great privilege to speak to you all this morning. My name is Christine Neely. I am the Vice President of the Family Justice Center Foundation, but I also am a lifelong Prince George's County resident. I'm a single mom to two beautiful children, Seth and Julia, and I also am a survivor of domestic violence. My story began in 2008 during a discussion that quickly escalated into a violent argument in the basement between my now ex-husband. As I decided to end the verbal argument and go upstairs to check on our then 18-month-old son, all of a sudden I was hit with such a violent force, I literally thought the roof had caved in on me. I couldn't breathe. I had no idea what was going on. My first thought was, oh my God, where's my son? Then I thought, where is my husband? And then the agony, the despair, and the horror hit me as I realized he was the one who hit me from behind, knocked me to the concrete floor, and was now straddling on top of me, choking me with his hands wrapped around my throat, literally taking every breath I had out of me. And I realized very quickly I had better fight with everything I had in me, or this monster was going to be raising my son. I was very lucky in that I did. I was able to escape him. He grabbed my leg, and we fought again. I made it up the stairs, slammed the basement door, put the lock on, made it to my son's room, put the lock on, barricaded where I sat for the next 12 hours. I eventually came out and was completely lost and perplexed. Because at the time, I was also a sworn federal agent. Domestic violence knows no socioeconomic bounds. It knows no color, knows no age, knows no race. It doesn't care about anything. And there I was. What was I going to do? I had no idea. What were people going to think? What were people going to say? I should have known better. Those were the thoughts that went through my head. I left, but I returned. I came from a broken home. I wanted to provide 2 parents for my son. He swore it wouldn't happen again. He said he would quit drinking. He didn't remember. And so I stayed. Things were never quite the same. I didn't trust him. I was uncomfortable. Things were rocky. And in January, February of 2008, there was another argument. I was sitting on the couch in my bathrobe with curlers in my hair, getting ready to go to a family party on my side. Our son was in the crib, and I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, just jibber-jabbering. And I knew he was home, even though he was supposed to go out, but I had no idea where he was. I had seen the car parked outside, he hadn't left, and I had said, I don't know where he is. He must be here somewhere. All of a sudden, he came flying around the corner, screaming and hollering, ripped the cell phone from my hand, yelling and screaming, trying to hit me. I ran down the hall. I tried to grab the cordless phone. He said, like hell, you're going to call the cops. I managed to grab my son from the crib, fight my way past him and out the front door, barefoot, robe on, curlers in my hand, and keys to the car. And that was the day I left. I filed for a protective order. I later agreed to drop it in exchange for him attending anger management courses through the Calvert County court system that he did for a year. And yes, I did go back again. However, in 2015, after we were married, things took a turn again for the worst. I had already realized at that time I needed to leave and get out because it had escalated once again, and I was trying to make my way out of the house. When my daughter came flying up the stairs to the kitchen where my mother and I were, at the time my mother and I were talking about how it would be best for me to leave, and she was hysterical, crying, uncontrollable. I could barely understand her, but I could see her knees were red and bruised. And all I could understand was, Daddy threw me, why? My mom tried to console her while I went downstairs. I went down to confront my husband and ask what happened. I could tell he had been drinking, so I turned to go back upstairs. He followed me, cornered me against the laundry room door, pinned me against it, pulled his hand back to punch me in the face as my mom appeared at the top of the stairs. And she said, I don't think you want to do that. It'll be the last thing you do. She saved my life, I'm sure of it. I made my way up the stairs. I took my daughter and son, and I left for good, never to return. I spent almost the next 4 years fighting for my freedom and the freedom of my children throughout the Circuit County court system. In 2018, in August, I was granted my absolute divorce and sole legal custody of my minor children. And thankfully and luckily, my now ex-husband was restricted of all access to the minor children due to abuse. Along my way in 2017, I walked through the doors of the amazing Family Justice Center, and my first interaction was with Miss Bobby Harvard. The Family Justice Center became a lifeline to not just me, but to my children. Excuse me 1 minute, I need my reading glasses. The Family Justice Center stood as a beacon of hope for me and my children. They offered counseling services, the Stay in Touch program, Holiday for Hope, providing Christmas for my children when I didn't have a dollar to my name, Thanksgiving for my children and I, helping me to find my voice and share my story when I was so exasperated because my child was crying that nobody was listening to her. Nobody was hearing what she had to say. The FJC became a second home to me and my family. And to this day, I'm proud to say that the Stay in Touch women are like sisters to me. in the parking lot one day after a very frustrating afternoon where my daughter was so upset after having to explain why she did not want to return for visitation after she had suffered another round of abuse. I was so upset and aggravated and frustrated and changing out of my high heels to put flats on to go to a domestic violence event. And I came across a woman I did not know, and she said, "Are you all right? Can I help you?" And I just kind of unloaded on her. Little did I know that that woman was Dr. Denise McCain of the Family Justice Center. And I said, I want to tell my story, but more importantly, I want to tell my story for my children. No child should have to endure what they're enduring, and nobody's listening. And I need to find a way to help not just my children, but all of these children. There must be a better way. And she walked with me and she talked with me and she said, "I think I can help you find your voice." And from there became a wonderful partnership where she helped me turn my anger into passion for advocacy, and forever I am grateful for that. That wonderful conversation has led to a wonderful road of advocacy for me. Today I'm proud to say that I am not just the vice president of the Prince George's County Family Justice Center Foundation, but I am also a member of the Voices program, which gives a voice to survivors to do community outreach, speaking events, and all other sorts of advocacy on behalf of survivors. My journey of hope and healing continues to this day. I want to tell people directly, victims out there, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that you can find your way through this darkness. I am a true testament to that. So please do not give up. Please reach out. We are waiting there to help you. So I would like to say again, thank you for having me here today. Thank you. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'd like to bring up now Miss Elena De La Cruz, a survivor and a member of Stay in Touch.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elena De La Cruz, and I'd like to start off by thanking the Most High God that I'm still alive. Here in the United States, over 1,500 deaths annually occur due to domestic violence, and those are only the deaths that are actually reported. Imagine all those other deaths that don't get reported. I survived domestic violence, and now I'm a warrior who speaks up against domestic violence for others. Domestic violence first started in my personal life when I was a child. As a child, I heard my parents fighting a lot. I never actually saw their fights, but kids are a lot smarter than y'all think. As a child, the fighting that my parents did taught me to accept it as an adult. So I was the one who would get beat, and my ex was the one who would beat me. I forgive my parents, and I love my parents. And with God's help, I also realized that it was a generational curse, because on my father's side, with those grandparents, they dealt with domestic violence. And on my mother's side, with those grandparents, they also dealt with domestic violence. So God opened my eyes and allowed me to see a pattern I didn't know exist. I was molested by a family member when I was about 7 years old. I was raped when I was 15. As an adult, I was raped multiple times by multiple abusers. My head was split open, and I needed about 5 staples in it. I had black eyes, I was bruised all over, I was choked unconscious, and I'll never forget, the first time he choked me unconscious, we both thought I was dead. I defecated and urinated on myself, and he just walked away, and at that time, I was actually praying and asking God to kill me. I didn't want to live anymore. One day, I finally had the courage to leave him. I had to get to a point where I was done, like just completely done. I fled from Florida to Maryland. His girlfriend at the time unknowingly encouraged me to press charges against him. That abuser served 2 years in prison for choking his girlfriend unconscious. I finally got help from another organization in another county. And in court, I was denied a lifelong protective order because at that time, the law was my abuser had to serve 5 years in prison, and he only served 2 years in prison. So I did all the legal stuff. I even represented myself in court. I faced my abuser, but deep inside, I felt like there was something missing. So unfortunately, I repeated the pattern again. This new abuser had me move to Minnesota. He was poisoning me, and I could have died. I remember in my lymph nodes, in my armpits, there were things coming out of it. In my stomach, there was things coming out of it. When I went to the doctor, my ex would actually accompany me to the doctor, and now I realize it's so I wouldn't tell on him because he was poisoning me. Over there in that state, the police department, I called them, I tried to get help, but at that time, it kind of seemed like an all-boys club. Nobody wanted to help. So I fled the state, I quit my job, and I went to go stay with a family member who I love and trust. In this state, I reached out for support, and I was told about getting a protected address, and I jumped on the opportunity to get that protected address, but still, deep down inside, there was something missing. I finally moved to Prince George's County, and one day I called a suicidal hotline. There was a specialist on the other end of the phone who informed me he realized that I just needed someone to talk to, so he gave me the information for the Family Justice Center in Upper Marlboro. And boom, just like that. By the grace of God, that's who I needed. I called the number provided, and I spoke to an intake specialist named Christine. I was told about a food resource, so I was able to go to the pantry and get food. I needed to fix my car to go to work, and I was able to get a resource that paid over $800 for a catalytic converter. The state's attorney's office helped me pay about 6 months of my rent in a safe house I live in today. I'm currently in a program to help me pay rent for my first home. And I was told about this support group that meets once a week. I figured I'd go check it out, but I told myself, if anybody acts mean or catty, I'm not even gonna bother. Thankfully, everybody was loving. And the name of that support group is Stay in Touch, SIT. It's kind of like a family where we bond and love on each other, because it's very taboo to talk about domestic violence. And I pray and hope nobody ever goes through it. But when you come together with another group of women that have been through it and you feel safe, you really form a bond. You really form a new family. That's where I met Ms. B, AKA Ms. Bobby, AKA Ms. Barbara Harvard. I also met the other facilitator, Dr. D, AKA Dr. Delane Smith Clark. That's where I met all my SIT sisters, and that's what was finally missing in my life. So we're a huge family, we love each other, and personally, I'm very thankful for all the resources. I still need therapy, and there's no shame in needing therapy because I've been through years of domestic violence. So I was on a waiting list from another state to have therapy, and that list has been about 2 years, and I recently called my insurance company. They put me on another waiting list, but with the help of Dr. D, she hooked me up with this lady named Sunny, who's helping me transfer my insurance from that state where I have the protected address to the insurance in this state. And so I'm currently working also with Metalworks here in Prince George's County to get a therapist and other resources. I'm thankful because I lived in an undisclosed location. I choose to stay hidden. And one thing I had to realize is that it's not enough just to have like an abuser locked up and serve their time. I also had to choose to forgive. I had to forgive myself for making those choices. I had to forgive everyone in my past who's abused me, most importantly, because God has forgiven me. And also realizing that they need help too. Those abusers need help. They need love. They need support. They need to realize they have a problem. They need that deliverance. They need therapy as well. So I jokingly say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise Elena. And so I'm thankful to be part of the family. I'm kind of like that cousin's, nephew's, aunt's, niece, sister, the new sister on the block. So thank you very much, and I appreciate this journey and this healing and everything Prince George's County has done to help me.
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring up Miss Lolita Dixon, the survivor and a member of Stay in Touch. Oh, that was, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good day to you all. I am Lolita Dixon, and I am a resident of Prince George's County for the past 25 years. Born and raised in different areas from North Carolina, DC, Hampton, and I never really shared my story publicly before, so this is my first time, but I have been searching for a way to help others because someone helped me. I started experiencing intimate partner relationships at the age of 15. Who knew that that's what that was back then? But I was raped in high school, and as a result of that, I didn't even know that's what it was called. I didn't know that I was being manipulated. I didn't know anything. So now I stand here. I've raised a family. I have gone to college, graduated, and now a successful professional out here in the community. And I experienced domestic violence again. So to me, I always thought that what I was experiencing was just typical because I saw family members go through it. And I thought this was a part of a relationship. Nobody told me that you're not supposed to, not my mother, not my father. So I feel like I come from a lot of different perspectives. I didn't realize that I was exposed to so much, and that when I do tell my story to some people and talk about the things I've gone through, they look at me like, you? How could you go through something like that? Because they think I'm so smart. They think I'm so intelligent. And I am smart. I am intelligent. But at the same time, I think people believe that because of your intelligence, you shouldn't experience anything. You should be smart enough to know better. And you should not allow people to do you any old kind of way. But I can't explain it. I don't understand how it happened or like how I came to that place, except for I just thought it was normal. I saw my uncle and my brother and just other different scenarios where they would be drunk and they lose it on their female friend or their girlfriend or whoever. And so I just believe that in a relationship, people go through that. And I really feel bad because when I went through that experience in high school, unfortunately, the police didn't help me. I was told that the police were called, but because my brother came to my rescue, came to protect me, and he assaulted the gentleman, not the gentleman, the person, I should just call him that. I had to dismiss my charges so that they would not charge my brother. So that was my first occurrence where I learned to bow down and don't speak up and don't say anything because nobody's going to help me. Nobody's going to do anything about it. As I grew up and went to college, married my college sweetheart, and we married very, very fast. I mean, he wooed me from the get-go, and my family was just like so impressed with him because he was so valiant, and he was just a very smooth talker, charming, all of that. And they said, oh, he's going to college. You have 2 children right now that you need help raising. I'm a single mom, and I'm just like, but I'm not really interested in him. So because my family encouraged me to continue with that relationship, I did. We got married like real quick, 2 months after we met each other. And the very first night, he set my clothes on fire. Because I would not put my clothes where he wanted me to put them. Never saw that behavior before. I mean, this man wrote me songs. He played music to me. He doused me with all kinds of love and adoration and everything. Never saw it coming. Now I'm married, and the very first night I'm going through this. But then I look back on it, and I'm like, how did I get here? You know, I thought this man loved me, you know. Now I'm pregnant, and he decides that I don't want you to have my child. I don't think you're worthy. I don't think you're good enough. Well, what am I supposed to do now? I'm 6 months pregnant, and I'm still in college. We're both still in college, raising this child, trying to bring her life into this world. And I have my mother with my other 2 daughters here in Prince George's County, and I'm down in Hampton trying to finish college. And because he decided he didn't want it, he decided to choke me and leave me out there to dry. I mean, choke me so much the breath came out of my body. I'm laid out. I have never in my life experienced anything like that. And I've never seen anybody else go through that. So I don't know what to do. You know, I come to, and I'm looking, trying to figure out what just happened to me. I'm in my bathrobe, my stomach is full here, and I'm like, I think he just tried to kill me. And I go outside looking for him, and he's outside washing the car. Doesn't even care that he left me there on the floor. I had a roommate at the time, and she was in her room. She didn't even know what had happened. But that wasn't the first time he choked me. And he has left me out. And you would think that I felt like I should have known better. I should have just left. Why didn't I do anything? I didn't call the police. I didn't do anything. I went to my doctor to find out if my baby was okay. That's all I cared about. I didn't even care about myself. I used to wander the streets at night. Once I had my son, wondering what to do. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm on the highway. I'm living in Hampton. I'm walking the highway. And honestly, in my mind, I'm like, if I walk in front of this truck and I die, then nobody would think anything of it. They would think it was just an accident. And I kept having those kind of thoughts. And I didn't really understand why. As I got on and finished college, and I continued in the marriage, because in my mind, I'm a child of God. I made a vow, for better, for worse. So I didn't go to the church. I didn't go to my parents. Nobody knew that I was going through all of this. And I was scared to tell anybody because I was embarrassed. Because here I'm going down here to go to college. My mother is watching my 2 daughters here that I have to leave behind while I go to school. And then I go get married, and this fool is treating me like this. And they're going to look at me like, well, that's the mess you made. So that's how I felt. Like that's what they were going to blame it on me and said, well, you made this bed, now you lay in it, you know? And little did I know that that's not how they would have felt. But that's what I really thought at that time. You know, I stayed in that marriage for 19 years. I went through abuse periodically. And because I did that, I didn't think nothing of it. My children had special needs. So in my attempt to get some help for my son, who had a special need, a learning disability, and trying to join his parent group, the intake person was asking me about my relationship with my husband. And I'm trying to figure out, why is that important? You know, I'm here for my son. And as I began to tell her a little bit about my relationship, she pulls out this list on the computer, and she started asking me a little bit more. And I said, you know, it was like a list of, I guess, signs of abuse or domestic violence. And as she was reading them off to me, she said, does he do this? Does he do that? And I was like, yeah. So what? You know, what does that got to do with anything? She said, do you know what domestic violence is? I said, yeah, I do. She said, well, what is it? I said, when a man comes home and he's drunk and he beat the crap out of you. That was my idea of domestic violence. I didn't know that there's any other way. And because he didn't beat me up every day, and because I fought back, I didn't feel like I was being a victim. So it took me about a year after she, you know, kind of informed me and educated me before I realized he did something that I got really scared. And when he threatened to kill me, he said he was going to kill me and my whole family. He would always do that. I ran, back then it was the Family Crisis Center in Hyattsville, I believe. And I ran to her, and I'll never forget, she said, Lolita, you came in here and you was not leaving until I helped you, because I said, I heard about your support group, you know, so I need some support. I need somebody to help me. And she told me I was too late, that they had already started the group. I couldn't start. I said, well, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going back to that house. I'm not going anywhere. I was frantic. And that's when I really started seeking out help. And going through that group, I went through the House of Ruth to get counseling for my kids. I got a lot of support, a safety plan. I started learning more, and the more I learned about how it was affecting my kids, that's when I really got empowered. I was like, oh no, because I'm not going to have my kids grow up like I did, not understanding that this is domestic violence and you shouldn't tolerate it. You should not allow anybody to treat you like this. You are better than this. So going through that, you would think I learned my lesson. I got my divorce, and 10 years later, I end up in another domestic violence relationship. And I don't know why. So fast forward to last year, that was the last straw for me. Once he stole my car, and he told me that I wasn't going to get this. He was going to do all this stuff to me and everything. He went and trashed my name. He called my job, tried to have me fired. He did everything he could to try to destroy me and break me. But thanks be, glory to God, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. And I let him know. I was then at that time involved with Family Justice Center, and I was at the SIT program. And when I went through that, I was embarrassed to tell my SIT sisters that I was going through this again, because I had left him and I went back to him because we were going to get married. And I just wanted that so much that I didn't even pay attention that I'm going through this all over again. And last year, when I went through what I went through, I was like, there's no way. I thank God for my SIT sisters. I thank God for the Family Justice Center, because I needed to re-educate myself and understand that I matter and that I don't have to take this, and there is a way out. And because of that, the job that I have, it allows me to help other people that are going through the same situation that I'm going through, mainly with children who have mental health issues and things like that. But as a result, I ended up turning my passion into my people and my community, and decided that I'm going to stand up and start telling my story, and hopefully that it will help someone understand that even though I have this master's degree, I've raised my 5 children, I have a son now that was a recipient of Camp Hope, thank God, and he has autism. He's 12 years old, high functioning. He gives me a run for my money, but love him to death, and he's such a great hope for me, because even his father took me through, and I was friends with his father for 30 years. We were friends since 9th grade, and so I even went through an abusive situation with him. But I thank God that I've had the community to help me and to encourage me, and now I'm out here doing the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lolita. Our last speaker today will be Mr. Robert Taylor, Executive Director and Chairperson of the Moyana C. Tillman Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Taylor, and I'm with the Moyana C. Tillman Foundation, and I'd like to thank the chief and the leadership team for inviting me here today. Also would like to thank Major McCurry and Lieutenant Green, Lieutenant Reed, and Detective Hill for being supporters as well. We had an event this past Sunday, and they came out and supported us at the event, spoke with our audience that was there, and it was very welcoming to see the support that we were given. Also want to thank the survivors for being vulnerable and the courage that you have shown to share your story. And in addition to that, to take your power back. It's awesome. I'm going to touch on three things here. One, I'm going to share with you who Moyana was, and then what started our foundation, and then what our foundation is focused on. It was 3 years ago when Moyana was shot by her boyfriend in front of her mom's house. She was 24 years old at the time, and she had the aspiration and the dreams of becoming a model. She had a big heart. She would help you out whether you were family, a friend, or a stranger. And that's who Moyana was. Fast forward, we started the Moyana C. Tillman Foundation because of her passion about helping others. And then also it developed into what can we do to provide support for survivors of domestic violence and those that went through such a tragic event we've gone through. Because it never eases the pain. Birthdays, holidays, and then I wasn't expecting this, but then the anniversary of her death. But we found a way to continue to turn her pain into a purpose. And so that's the reason why we started our foundation. Our foundation is focused on advocating and helping survivors of domestic violence. We're also focused on providing support for families who have gone through such a tragic event. And we also are looking at our foundation to educate and be the voice for young adults, women and men, who may be going through such an event, but also to provide the resources that are available, such as what we were talking about, the Family Justice Center, in addition to some great services out there as well. We want to continue to be a partner with the community. We want to see ourselves teaming up with resources that's available in two areas that will help focus on kind of providing the sources, and the one is crisis management. We want to be able to, if we get the call, we get the email, we want to be able to reach out to services providers and say, hey, we have a crisis. We need somebody out of a situation now, and what can you do to help us help this individual? And the second one is about the therapy, because once you go through a tragic event such as that, the death of a loved one, surviving such a horrific domestic violence event, what's next? And the what next is helping to get some therapy to help talk about and get through this difficult time. And so, again, I want to thank you for inviting the Moyana C. Tillman Foundation to come speak today. Thank you for having me. And as we start to continue to move down our journey, we want to make sure that we provide the services that's available to help anyone in those of domestic violence in a situation. Thank you.
like to thank everybody for being here, and Major McCurry has some
I just wanted
yous.
to, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to take the time to thank our Special Crimes Division team, Lieutenant Green, Lieutenant Reed, Detective Hill, all of our investigators who came up with the vision for this event. They worked extremely hard to pull this off while managing their caseload. Like I said earlier when I first came up here, Detective Vila, Christina, thank you all. They are so committed to the fight against domestic violence, and it shows today. They have met all of our speakers. They spoke with them about this event, and thank you for your service and coming in to work with us and for trusting us. Outstanding team, and I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge them, so thank you so much.
And I'd like to thank Major McCreary for putting this together. Thank you to Captain Fox for all of your help. We'd like to thank the media for being here today and helping us get this very important message out to the public. Thank you very much. And in closing, there he is. Here's Chaplain. You heard some horrific stories, and you heard some wonderful survival and perseverance, and congratulations, and thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate your words, and we'd like to wish you, give you a prayer in leaving today, because it seems in most of your stories that faith was very important to you, and we'd like to bring up our chaplain to wish you well.
And thank you, Chief, for letting us do this.
Chief Aziz and Chief Hale, thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
yes. That was going to be, thank you. Go right ahead.
Amen. Thank you. And also in concert with this, in my church, I will be preaching on a topic tomorrow called End It Now, a message for the brokenhearted. So it's important that as leaders in our churches, we preach about domestic violence and how to not only just survive it, but also get out. So as leaders, I feel like it's important for that. So thank you for your stories. Thank you for your testimonies. Can we all stand together? God, we thank you for what we have heard. We are here to raise concerns. Thank God for our Chief Aziz, Major McCrary, and Captain Fox. We thank you for all of the team of Prince George's County Police and auxiliary from every division to the top. Domestic violence is a ripple effect to all involved and related. We pray for prevention from violence among our communities, for that cannot be tolerated. The stories shared will impact our actions. Stories of a mother's sacrifice because of others' inaction. We thank you for the progress and services to heal. Bless those hurt with justice and be their shield. Lord, what can we do to change the narrative? Help us to do more than brochures and statistics. Build us with options as needs are different. Let information and wisdom be significant. Let this everyday platform shine through the year. Give us spiritual cloths to wipe universal tears. God, I pray for the survivors in this room. They finally left. Thank God for family who came to the rescue soon. Bless us now as we go on. In our Heavenly Father's name we pray. Amen and amen.
Thank you all. I'd like to thank our department for everything they've done, and thank you to our command staff and our chief and our Assistant Chief Hale for being here today. And we have some refreshments, and if you'd like to talk to